The breadth of the cave spread outward. It was no longer contained to the twisted trees or the bones of Kettering Hollow. The world itself, the skin of it, was beginning to peel. Reality frayed. The clouds churned black. The sky bled down in thin, gray sheets. The land twitched underfoot, soft and pulsing like living tissue, as though something enormous and awake slumbered just inches beneath the topsoil. And the cave. The cave gaped wider. Its black mouth stretched open as tendrils of mist. Pale, oily, and unnatural, unfolded in languid waves. Within, shapes moved. Things that should not move. Elias woke to screams. He coughed, spat blood, and clawed upright amid the rubble of St. Mercy's. Every breath burned. His ears rang. But he was alive. Somehow. Around him, the ground writhed. The last of the human survivors, he could see them, were being pulled into the dark by the white-eyed creatures. Some were dragged by hands. Others were slathered in oily darkness that melted flesh where it touched. It wasn't just Evelyn anymore. The hollow had fully opened. "Evie," he croaked. His voice barely worked. His arms trembled as he pushed himself onto ruined legs. And there she stood. In the center of the desecrated chapel, Evelyn swayed on her feet. Her body was not her own. Her bones stretched, cracked sideways beneath her gray skin. Her face was melting, her jaw slack, her ribs moving beneath thin muscle as if hands pressed from within. Her eyes still glowed white gold. Flickers of her humanity surfaced between spasms of horror. She wept even as her body convulsed, the thing inside her skin tearing and tearing, unable to fully consume or fully release. She saw Elias. Her lips moved soundlessly, "I'm sorry." The ground split. The earth tore itself open in jagged lines, vomiting up wet blackness that steamed and hissed. The cave's breath became a wind, rushing outward, carrying the smell of decay, of ancient rot, of flesh worn thin over endless centuries of hunger. And then the thing rose. It was faceless. It was endless. The best Elias could comprehend was a shape that moved where it should not fit. A mass of flesh, teeth, eyes, bone, tendrils, all shifting in constant motion, an anti-shape, something that was never meant to exist in the human world. Its limbs, long, wet, limbs without joints, unfolded from the cave's mouth. Its head, if it was a head, was crowned with a ring of twitching hands, each finger longer than a human arm. And somewhere in that mass of weeping, rippling meat, he saw the outline of faces, hundreds of them. Faces he knew. Faces that had once been alive. The hollow was awake. Elias screamed without sound. His mind fractured, splitting down the center like old wood. He crawled, blind, sobbing, until his hand touched her foot. Evelyn. Still standing. Her eyes, bright with tears, glowing with the last flickers of her soul, met his. And she whispered, with infinite sadness, "I'm still here." Her hands trembled. The flesh along her arms split, thin black tendrils writhing beneath her skin like worms beneath glass. She clenched her teeth. Teeth that were half human, half monstrous, and she fought. The hollow's children, the white-eyed ones, approached. They moved in a circle, their bodies limp, puppet-like, but their smiles still wide. But Evelyn raised her arms. And something inside her body screamed in defiance. The ground shook. The cave shivered. The sky above ripped open, exposing not stars but something worse. A vast, endless darkness, as though the heavens themselves had been peeled back to reveal a second, rotting layer of reality beneath. Through the rift, more limbs descended. Fingers. Faces. Mouths that whispered in a dead tongue. But Evelyn, through sheer force of will, held her ground. Her hands splayed. Her mouth tore wider. And she spoke words not meant for human lips. The hollow's children shrieked, staggered back. Some dropped to their knees, clawing at their own skin as white foam bubbled from their mouths. Elias clung to her. "Evie," he wept. Don't let it," and her eyes, those haunted, brilliant white gold eyes, found him. "You have to end it," she rasped. "Before it's too late." Her flesh bulged. Her bones snapped sideways, her ribs pierced through the skin of her back as the thing inside her struggled to be born. And then she did something unthinkable. Her hand, shaking, fingers half dissolved, reached into her own chest. Her fingertips pierced flesh, tore, dug deep. With a choked sob, she pulled something out, a black shard. Pulsing, wet, alive. The size of a fist. The texture of something half organ, half stone. It screamed in no voice, shivering in her grip. She thrust it into Elias' hands. "Take it," she whispered. "It's the heart." Her eyes, bleeding now, her face half unmade, shone with desperate clarity. "You have to destroy it before it finishes crossing." The hollow roared. The cave widened. The sky split deeper. The ground peeled back like flesh from bone. And the monstrosity, that endless, vast, impossible anti-thing, surged forward. Elias ran. The shard burned in his hands, sending cold tendrils of despair into his veins, filling his mind with visions of impossible geometries, oceans of bone, skies of flayed skin. But still he ran, toward the cave, toward the very mouth of the hollow itself. Evelyn collapsed behind him, her body no longer human, her screams those of something half-born, half unmade, but her eyes still found his. And she smiled. The last of her humanity smiled. The final descent was madness. The cave walls pulsed. The air tasted of copper and rot. The heartbeat of the hollow boomed louder and louder until it consumed all thought. The tunnel widened, became a throat, a stomach, a womb of living stone and meat. And at the center of it all, at the pulsing core, Elias saw the true heart, a mouth without a face. A wound in reality. A living gate. He raised the shard. It fought him. The screams of 1,000 dead voices rose in his skull. Memories not his own flooded him, worlds consumed, cities of flesh, oceans of screaming skin. His fingers blistered. His bones snapped. His eyes bled. But he raised the shard higher. And with the last of his strength, tears streaming, blood pouring from his nose, he slammed it down. The world broke. A sound beyond sound. A rupture beyond light. A tearing of everything that was and wasn't. The cave imploded. The hollow screamed. And then, silence. Elias collapsed. The last thing he saw, before the darkness claimed him, was Evelyn, her face whole again, smiling through tears. And then he knew no more. The darkness stretched forever. Elias floated. Or fell. Or perhaps he was standing still, motionless inside a place without shape or time. The echoes of the shard's destruction still rang through his bones. Somewhere deep beneath his feet, if he still had feet, he could feel the tremors of something massive dying. Or waking. Or both. But he was so tired. And then, a hand. Small. Cold. Familiar. Pulling him upward. When he opened his eyes, the world had changed. Kettering Hollow was gone. The twisted trees, the perpetual dusk, the churning sky, all of it had collapsed into nothingness, leaving only a vast wound in the earth. A crater, deep and black, as though the land itself had been peeled away, exposing the raw muscle and bone beneath reality. And standing at its jagged edge was Evelyn. Her eyes were still white, but the gold was gone. Her skin, what remained of it, was pale, thin, almost translucent. Beneath, Elias could see the faint pulse of dark veins, the flicker of something alive and wrong. But her face, her true face, was her own again. She smiled, weakly. Her lips cracked. "Hey," she whispered. Elias stumbled toward her, his legs barely obeying. His hands were burned raw, his skin flayed in places where the shard's power had poured through him. "Evie," he rasped. Did we stop it?" Her eyes lowered. She didn't speak. The sky above them was wrong. It wasn't just night. It wasn't just storm. It was as if the fabric of the world had thinned, and beyond the clouds, Elias could see something moving. Vast coils, like the slow unfurling of some impossible leviathan, its body spanning stars he could no longer name. The hollow wasn't dead. It was waiting. Dormant. For now. Evelyn's voice trembled. "We closed the gate." But, she touched her chest, the place where she had torn the shard from her own body. Her fingers came away wet with black ichor. "It's still inside me," she whispered. Elias fell to his knees. His breath hitched in his throat. No, we can fix it. We'll get help." But her head shook, slowly. Her eyes, those terrible, glowing white eyes, fixed on his face with unbearable sadness. "There's no fixing for this," she murmured. I'm part of it now. It's part of me. Even if we stopped it from crossing fully," she swallowed hard, blood dribbling from the corner of her mouth. "The door's still open. Just a crack. But that's enough. Eventually, it will find a way back through. Through me. Through others." The wind howled across the empty crater. Somewhere in the distance, Elias could still hear the faint whispers, the remnants of the Hollow's children. Not all of them had been destroyed. Some had scattered into the forest. Hiding. Waiting. He pulled her into his arms. Held her close despite the rot, despite the cold. Despite the fact that her skin no longer felt human. "I won't lose you," he whispered. Her fingers twitched, spider-like. Her breath rasped shallow and thin. "You already have," she murmured. I'm not me anymore." Her voice broke. Tears, real ones, spilled down her gray cheeks. And then she whispered, barely audible, "Please, you have to end it." The weight of the words crushed him. "Evie, no," her hands gripped his wrists with surprising strength. "Please," she gasped. "Before it wakes again. Before it grows. I can feel it inside me, Elias. Dreaming. Breathing." She pressed his hand, his fingers trembling, bloodied, against her own throat. Her heartbeat beneath his palm was wrong. Out of rhythm. "Do it," she whispered. "For me. For everyone." His mind splintered. Tears blurred his vision. His body shook so violently he could barely breathe. But her eyes, her true self, begged him. And somewhere in the depths of that pale, broken face, she was still there. He kissed her forehead. And with a sob that shattered something deep inside, Elias tightened his hands. The wind rose. The hollow screamed. The world buckled, just for an instant, as the last human breath left Evelyn's lungs. And then, silence. The sky cleared. The crater remained, but the wound beneath the world seemed to seal, the last of the tendrils withdrawing like receding waves. The whispering stopped. The white-eyed shadows faded. And Elias, broken, bloodied, and alone, fell to his knees and screamed into the endless dark. He doesn't know how long he sat there. Hours. Days. The sun eventually rose. But it didn't matter. Something inside him was hollowed out, carved away by the thing that now slept again, somewhere beneath the skin of the world. He buried her by the crater's edge. with his bare hands. Her eyes, still white, even in death, he covered with a cloth torn from his own shirt. The last he ever saw of Kettering Hollow was the wind moving through the trees, silent, empty, waiting. He never spoke of what happened. The town's name faded from maps. Survivors, few as they were, forgot in pieces, their minds shattered by what they'd glimpsed. But Elias remembered. And some nights, when the wind is right, when the moon is thin, he still hears the faint heartbeat. Still hears her voice. Still sees white eyes staring from the dark. The hollow sleeps. For now. But the door remains. And doors. Always open again.